Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking and showing all about my second passion in life, which is food photography. Next to baking, I love photographing the things that I bake, and I love to post my photos on Instagram. So if you want to join me and follow along there, my handle is by.andreja. So I often get asked, how do I take my photos for Instagram? What do I do? What kind of equipment do I use? So I thought I would put together this really easy to follow along kind of behind the scenes look of everything that goes into one of my photographs. So I just want to prove with this video that you do not need to have all these fancy things and a fancy setup to get really, really nice photos. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to walk you through is everything that I used to set up, and I'm going to just flip my camera around and show you exactly what I do, as well as share some tips along the way. Before we get started with that, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, as well as make sure you ring that notification bell so that you know when my next video is coming out. All right, so the first thing that you're going to want to figure out is your location of your setting for your food photography. And the one thing that's going to determine where that location is where the best spot in your house is for a natural light source. So I do not use any lighting equipment for any of my Instagram photos when I am photographing food. I think natural light is always the best way to go. And I kid you not, if I bake something in the evening, I will not touch it until the next day. And when the lighting is right, that's when I will take my photos of it. So you have to be really patient. And there are times when it's a cloudy day or it's just so overcast and there's not a lot of good light. I will just wait until that good light does come to take my photos. So I'm going to show you where that spot in my house happens to be and how I begin to set it up for the photo shoot. So this is my dining room and my dining room table, and that's actually the table that I like to shoot on because, as you can see, it's a really nice background. It actually is wood and you see a slight grain of wood in there, but I just love a really nice clean white background. We have a lot of natural light coming in through this sliding door area here. So the first thing that I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pull this table right up against the window so that I can shoot more in this area where there's a lot more light right next to the window. Now that I've got my table right next to my light source, I need something to stand up here to act as another backdrop. And just the same, like I like to use a plain white backdrop for the bottom, I also like to use just a plain white one for the wall that I'm building here. This is actually a canvas, and I believe it was like $15. What I do is I actually use the chair behind to have the canvas sit on, and then I just tuck in the chair nice and snugly so that this has a really nice snug fit just up against the table, so it actually just looks like there's a wall behind. A really inexpensive alternative to using a canvas like this, I mean, this is already pretty inexpensive. You could simply just use a Bristol board from the dollar store. All right, so now we've got our background set up behind me. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is the camera that I use. So this is a D7000. It's a Nikon. I got it, I think, almost 10 years ago now. It is a really good camera. I absolutely love it. I am not a camera expert, so I just want to put that out there. And I'm actually really embarrassed to say that I know very little about the camera that I have. To be honest, I typically just shoot in the automatic settings. I rarely touch manual. I'm very kind of terrified of it. I had the intention after getting this camera to learn everything there was to know about it. And I started doing that and I got really overwhelmed, and I was having a lot of success by just using the camera to point and shoot. I know that there's so much more that this camera can do and I'm really missing out. But for my purposes, with my setup and my lighting and my editing, I have not found a need to kind of go beyond. And I also want to show you guys that you don't need to have a fancy camera. You just need a point and shoot camera that takes somewhat good quality photos. It's more so the technique that you're going to use that's going to get you that amazing Instagram photo. The one thing that I will say is before beginning to shoot, I always make sure that my lens is really nice and clean. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is that I never use a tripod for my food photography. So it's always freehand. And the only time that I will use a tripod is if I'm actually in the photograph. The next thing is obviously your subject. What are you taking a picture of? I saved one of my little, these are actually, I call them my faux babkas because it's not a real babka dough recipe. I just used a white bun recipe to make the shape of a babka. I'm just going to kind of finish it off so that it looks a little bit prettier than a plain loaf of bread. So I'm gonna do that right now, and then we're going to get to our first set of shots. But before I do that, I'm actually going to pick out the plate that I'm going to put this on. So the next thing that we're talking about are props. Next to the actual baked good, you wanna think about what are you gonna put it on. Sometimes I honestly put things directly on the table if they are things like sugar cookies, and I just want a simple white background. But most of the time, I love playing with colorful plates. I really like just keeping things super simple and minimal to keep the focus on the food. Nothing against really fun styled shoots. It's just not my thing. So I have a stack of plates here that I'm going to choose from. So I just want to kind of walk you through my thought process here. So I actually really love how this plate kind of brings a lot of life to it. But the thing is I'm going to be using these sprinkles, and when I put these on, I think it's going to just clash with the plate. So I'm actually going to go with this more plain pale pink plate, and I think that will just look a lot nicer as a background for the sprinkles. All right, so for the first set of photos, I'm going to take them all from this type of angle. And there's 3 ways that you can do this. So you can take the photos from slightly from the top. The second is to just do a head-on shot. So you want it to be perfectly straight, and you want this kind of bottom to be nice and straight with the bottom of your camera. And the third way is you can do kind of one of these from lower down looking up. So for this particular picture, I don't find that very flattering. I think it works better when you have like a stack of cookies or a stack of squares or something, and it just makes things look a lot more kind of larger than life when you go from this bottom up. I think the more flattering angles for this one are going to be straight on, as well as slightly from the top. And when I do the straight on ones, I just want to get a little bit more range. So I will do kind of these off center ones. And this will be more clear once I show you guys the final pictures. Our next angle is going to be a top down. So this one is really straightforward. I'm going to do one where there's just the cake in the middle, but then I'm also going to do 4 other angles. So I'm going to do just the top half, side, as well as the bottom. And when I do the one where it's just in the center, I do some that are closer up and some that are a little further away, just depending on how much background I would like to keep in my photograph. And I'm just gonna mention at this point here, you can always do some really cool close-up detail shots, as you can see here. And I actually forgot to mention that when I did the first set of photos from this angle, I did the same thing where I would go a little bit closer to get those detail shots. But the great thing is if you take these shots from afar, you can always zoom in later. But I also always kind of play with zooming in as well while I'm photographing. So the last three types of photos that I would take are more of our kind of like action shots where there's a little bit more happening in the photo. So depending on what your baked good is, it'll kind of determine the order of these shots. So just keeping in line with what we're using as our baked good for this photo shoot. So the first photograph that I'm going to take is of me holding the cake. It's just going to be kind of my middle section to show off the cake with the background of a cute outfit. Guys, I'm probably not going to change, so this is going to be the background. I'm a little bit limited with what I can wear at the moment being pregnant, but typically I would actually pick out a certain dress or shirt or something that I would want to use as the backdrop, and I would literally just go put it on just to take the photograph. Now, why I'm doing that particular photo first is because I do plan on cutting the cake up to do a nice flat lay shot. So if these were cookies or squares or something that did not need to be cut into, you could really do these last three types of shots in any particular order. It wouldn't really matter. But in the case where you would be cutting up a cake or a pie or something and you want to keep it whole for a certain shot, then you're going to want to do this one first. For this one, we're not going to use our table little backdrop here. I'm just going to find some white wall in my house and stand in front of that. I have this really awesome Polaroid tripod for today because I want to show you that you do not need a tripod. I'm actually not going to use it, and I'm going to take my photo using a stack of books and some boxes to prop my camera up to the level that I want it, so that you guys know that you can do this at home and you do not need a tripod. Okay, so we're done with the shots with the body in them. I just wanted to mention one thing. So we're obviously using a timer for that. If your camera doesn't have a timer, then hopefully there's someone who can help you out with this and take those photos for you. But I do recommend that if you are able to increase the number of shots that your camera will take when you set up your timer, it is just so convenient. So mine actually takes a set of 9 shots every time that I press the button. All right, we're almost done, guys. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to slice into this babka with a knife and take some photos just straight on and making sure that the light is catching the inside where I have cut. After that, I'm going to get my hands involved in the shot. So I love to add a little bit more interest in those hand shots with the use of either nail polish. Right now I am pregnant, I am not wearing any nail polish, so I'm not gonna do that, but I'll still put like rings on my hands or a bracelet, as well as some kind of sleeve in the shot. Right now I'm wearing a sleeveless shirt, so what I'm actually gonna do is go find from my closet something that I could just slip onto my arm that complements the baked good. So in this case, it's gonna be like a pastel-y color of some sort. So it's a great way to add some color into an otherwise very minimally styled shot. And the last type of photo we're going to take is the flat lay photo. So I will talk about that a little bit later, but for now, we're just gonna do the cut into the cakes and then the hand shot. So let's go. Okay, so as you can see, I have cut into my babka. So now I just wanted to kind of quickly show you how I would go about actually photographing this head on. I am not gonna take the picture like this. As you can see, it looks terrible. I also wanted to just show you guys that things don't always turn out the way you want them. So there happened to be like a massive air pocket right in the center of my babka. So I, first of all, would never take a picture head on like this. You can either take the angle from here. So we're actually disguising that middle part. All you want to see is just kind of like a little bit of the inside and a nice clean cut on the outside here. You could also take it from this angle, but as you can see, this angle, this part of the inside is is now in the shadow, versus when we have it on this side, we have the light coming in from this direction. We've got light here, light here. So this is what we want. Even though I would prefer to photograph this side because I think it's just a little bit cleaner looking, the lighting is not working in our favor. So instead we would be on this side of the table, and now we would have our shot from this side. So you know what, guys? I'm actually going to just switch my board from this side to that side of the table, because I really do think this side will photograph just that much prettier. All right, so this is the hand shot. So I've got my sleeve on here, and as you can see, it really complements the colors of the sprinkles, and it's just gonna add another little point of interest in the photograph. I'm using my hand with my wedding rings on it anyways, so I'm not gonna add anything else. But sometimes I will use my other hand, in which case I will put on some different kind of rings with a little pop of color or a bracelet or something like that. So if this was a cookie shot or something where it's like a piece of pastry, I would just simply hold up the pastry against this backdrop. And I try to do kind of elegant things with my hands. So I'll hold the cookie here, and you want to like delicately spread out your fingers, or you'll hold it like this, or from the bottom up. And the problem that I find is a lot of the time, if you're taking a picture yourself, you're really straining. So it's going to be like this or like this. And it's like where your hand is kind of forward towards the camera, it just doesn't look good. So I really try to keep my hand straight up and relax my hand and try to take with my other hand that I've got the camera in and push it as far back as I can go. In this case, we have a piece of cake or bread. I know I keep calling it cake, but it really is bread, but it looks like cake. I think what would be nice in this case is to keep this in the shot and just kind of be pulling this out of the cake. So I'm gonna take a shot like this, and again, it's good because the light is hitting this piece of cake that I want to highlight. If I was just taking a picture of this on its own, I would be simply like holding it up like that. I don't think this particularly looks very good on its own, but maybe I could do something like this where I'm showing off the sprinkles, or a little bit like that where you see the inside, but I just don't think it's very flattering. Okay, lastly, we're gonna get to that final flat lay that I was talking about earlier. So what I typically do for these ones are I will cut 2 more slices of the cake, or in this case, the bread, and pick some plates to display it on. Sometimes I like to do all plain white plates that match, or sometimes I like to do just a mixture. It just depends what you wanna do with your photo and how much color you wanna bring into it. And then my only other props that I'm gonna use for this are going to be my forks and my napkins. And in the shot, I'm going to include the cut into babka. So it's there as a reference point of what we had just cut into. Now you could take this a whole step further and add other little bits and props, but I like to keep it pretty simple. So I'm going to show you how I style this one. Okay, so I'm just gonna start trying to compose this so that it looks pretty. I'm going to kind of keep the cake off to the side. I might keep this knife in just because it looks kind of nice. And then I'm going to put this plate maybe here next to the pink, just because this one is the same kind of plate as the pink one. So I want to keep this one a little further away. And then I'll put this one here. And you do want to kind of bring things in really tightly. You'll see right away when you take a picture and things are too spread out that it just looks out of place. All right, so let's now place these napkins. So maybe one up here, here, and then I think I want to bring one into this kind of middle part so that that's not just left bare. And we'll tuck that one under there. And also the direction of the cakes. As you'll notice, I think this looks pretty good like this. Actually, I'm gonna spin this one a little bit around so that we do see a little bit of those sprinkles, but you don't wanna have all of your cake pieces kind of facing in the exact same direction. You rather just kind of make them all point in different directions just to add a little bit of interest. And then we're just going to lastly place the forks. If you're planning to use these photos for Instagram, if I take a really tight one, then as you know, for Instagram, you kind of then crop it a little bit further. So if I take one from here and then it's gonna end up like that, it's not really a good idea. So I do tend to take my flat lays from a little bit further up so that if I wanted to play with this entire composition, I could get most of it into my shot. And the other thing that I like to do is I will take pictures from different angles. So I will rotate the camera like so that I can kind of get every sort of angle. I always say it's better to have more pictures and more variety. The worst thing is when you've already taken all of your pictures and you can't go back to take more. I like to also take a few from the side. So in this case, I would probably spin this around and then take one from here. So I would have to spin that around. So you'll see me kind of playing around with them when I take it from a different angle. It's also nice when you're taking an above flat lay like this to take some zoomed in shots of just like one plate. So something like this, where this is now the focus and you get to see kind of little bits of the other plates just kind of complementing this main piece here in the photo. There you have it. Those are all of the different types of photographs that I will take within one food photo shoot. And the beauty of this method of taking all sorts of different angles and stylings and all that is that you're left with such a variety of photos to use. And that way, when you go through all the trouble to bake something and make something really, really pretty, you're not just left with one type of photograph. And people have commented on my Instagram, it looks like you're constantly baking. How are you doing this? Aren't you busy with other things? And the answer is yes. Sometimes I am baking a lot in a week, but sometimes I'll go a whole month without baking, but I have this stock of photos that I can always pull from and share that inspiration with my followers. Now, you're probably wondering, how did these photos that I take with this camera end up on my Instagram? So I'm going to actually make another video showing you exactly how I take these photos and how they eventually make it onto my phone and how I just use the Instagram app to edit my photo. If you found this video helpful and you enjoyed watching it, be sure to give it a like. And again, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and ring that notification bell so that you know when my next video is out. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!